concerns, I would say. And it was extremely interesting for me that this morning in our first address, we were thinking the same phrase that I'm going to talk about. I was always struck with the fact that in scholarly literature there is lots and lots of proof that these kind of uh, colonies that are built in communities or cities far away from people's previous locations, that they do really endanger people's livelihoods because they're so far away from where they used to be when they used to work as well. So, in literature, there that prove this is not the way to do it. And still see this kind of resettlement colonies being built everywhere again. To an NGO partner in England, exactly this. And isn't it nice? So why are we still doing this? Why we know that it's not talking about these things. She said exactly the same phrase that we heard today. She said, but who reads these papers? Scholars are reading these papers, not the politicians, not the policymakers, maybe even not the. So then because I guess we as scholars, would continue this doctor, we really need to think about the impact of our scientific. Is it reaching where it should reach, or is it just sitting around every time and producing books? That's a kind of concern for me. Yeah. So to conclude, let me see. Yeah. Same story, again from this case studies that we did in Coimbra. You can download all of them from the websites that are showing you. This one looked at I think the books speaks for themselves. Huge colonies in which there are even some the visitors themselves don't want to go because they feel that it's an unsafe area. And more importantly, that's what I wanted to show you. Even so, it's probably not that easy to discern. We were looking at so the fact that people have to commute to their workplaces in the city center of their budget, but they running having their decent amount of sleep due to the fact that early morning they have to get up, run to the city for hours. Because public transport is not adequate. And when they come home, same story. When they go to bed, sleep around. So that's also eliminated all their life from their family, from their that's it's not have the time to play anymore. It goes into it. And that's not something we should think lightly, I think. Yeah. And then not least, as I have been doing video prominently, another case study in one of the projects was how the space and the availability of space is very important for things. So, I'm going to look at roots in Underwood, and it's thought that with the availability of space in their body, on their rooftops. And the rubbish that they enable them to amass while so they could sell for a higher price. Whilst this lady here, for instance, she had no space whatsoever in front of her tiny little so she had a table for a window at a much lower rate. So these little differences are there and show us how important space development is for these people. And I think we have touched upon this topic yet and again today. The thinking and the configuration of was Invite you to visit the villages of these topics. Two of them are both those that we did in India. The new one is the one that we did with Ethiopian colleagues. And furthermore, yeah, that's me. You can always contact me if you want. We have published again on this similar topics in this book. Um, Talking about resilience, yeah, under the impact of climate change, especially, but not limited to climate change impacts. And we have a the these linked because between housing and one million. That's it. I want to finish. Thank you.
Okay, Tania, maybe you can take a seat. So, now let me open the floor for questions. Any questions for Frank? Frank Down? Okay. Maybe Frank, you would have one question. Prostitution. He has a question.
In this region, yeah. Uh, my question is, with all the efforts supposed to be doing in Kenya and Vietnam, have you had any study or have you kind of looked at how it is impacting their or their existing planning systems and organizations? What changes have really happened? Because even here we do some training of trainers, we do a lot of capacity building efforts with government systems and people. But ultimately, how much of it translates into their standard procedural work, how much of it gets standardized in some way or taken up is very, very questionable. So I want to know what has been your experience in Vietnam. Did you get the question? I don't. Did you get the question?
Okay, back to you. You want to answer the question? One more question. Yeah. Bringing change is always difficult, particularly in a government system. So, when you were working in Vietnam, what was the biggest challenge that you faced? Yeah. That's a short question with a long answer. Um, we don't have the time to go at length. The first question, if I understood well, because they it's coming out of the room and they have to really listen carefully. But what kind of changes to the planning system did we want to really achieve? To be the planning system is such because we are putting all our energy on the nature and including law. Yeah. It's difficult. If you have to, communicate with dedicated section, not the section, but really standalone on how to achieve sustainable urban development through planning. So there is of course the liquid planning, but it's more focused on urban development management, like construction, and then the management now by the city councils, the city leaders, so so the idea is that once we have defined how we manage our cities, we can better adjust also the plan made for those cities. So that on the other hand, if you think Vietnam country, country, not with 50% of this, they want to be handled organization. They feel that it's happening rapidly. And then one planning, developing. So, if you go for what is the biggest change? Well, the biggest change is that they are putting their focus more on and less on because that's when the development is happening. No, it's dangerous because it might lead to and of they will feel completely disturbed about so the investments that will be concentrated in the house. So now that so if I want to advise what would be positive and the negative impact of that kind of overall approach. Why not? The challenge so in rigidity in yeah, how to say that? Sturdiness, the on the we have to acknowledge the situation that Vietnamese people have known to promote their economy and their traditions, and they now Christmas from outside reducing to let me say in a less diplomatic way, stubbornness. That probably when we talk but also a stubbornness that means that change will not happen easily and not rapidly. You don't know how to process. It doesn't involve in consistency more forward than the use because it's or so just the it's the political organization that is also aware of the of in the political system due to opening itself so the markets and say it's of course a very political organization and advantages, disadvantages. They are looking for ways to what they call national unity and so in one word, I think stubbornness, rigidity, and let's say so the biggest challenges to overcome.
Uh, Thank you, Frank. Any questions for Professor Tania Berger?
No, I didn't hear. I didn't hear.
Uh, yeah, any questions for Tania Berger?
My check. And then you talk about the resettlement colonies, about going to see the colonies in by what is happening here. Many some resettlement colonies are built by government, by the state. So these are basically demolished. मतलब states feel that some are desperately demolished because they are illegal. Poor living condition is there, and also they are unplanned. And the resettlement colonies is the leader to the basic rules about ventilation or sunlight. And you are creating to use the building. Landlords come in the slum. In places, what is we have to in a so, we are saying, hey, we are there is some policy of the state to also facilitate the social with the other people of the society. Like
Well, probably I should give that question back to you. You are the future of India. So, and even the future planners of India. So, hopefully, yeah. I guess here talking planning, we are talking politics, and we are talking about distribution of wealth and distribution of resources. That's where most of it is about. If resources are there, better building, better housing is certainly possible. Also for uh, the more um, disprivileged parts of society, but that's exactly the word. They do them as disprivileged. Yeah, so I'm not a politician, not a decision nothing of that all. So I can only see in what it translates to what are these kind of decisions, these kind of policies, and also these kind of social structures that in which there are powerful groups and powerless groups. That's what they translate into when it comes to housing. That's what I can say. Yes, I have some ideas what it, I mean, you have ideas what decent housing should look like. Just the way to get there is a political process rather than a
Any other questions? In essence, Frank, it was really excellent to have you, and I think we can have a discussion in future so that we can have a Center for Urban Excellence in India, maybe with the help of ISOCAP. We will discuss this in a separate place. Um, and thanks a lot again for joining online. Hope we will be able to have you sometime in India in future. Um, and Tania, it is excellent thing that you could manage to come and we can all get to see your excellent work and the issues that you raised are so relevant. Um, Ravi, the point that you raised about this resettlement colony, I remember when I was studying architecture way back, that time also we dealt with the very same issues, but 35 years down the line, it still continues to repeat the same mistakes. Um, I think so.
With permission, can I just add a line? Sir, can I just add one line? I want this gentleman there. And it's interesting, Tanya. Like Person Khaled just said, we have all been worrying about this informal settlements and what to do about it. And it's also coincidental that in Odisha now we have this model of Jaga mission, which means they are ground based. But what happens to those areas in which they cannot be given tenure? They're still put resettlement colonies, and it'd be interesting to go and see one of them locally. The thing is that back in the 90s itself, there are experiences across the country. There are complete areas which have been developed resettlement colonies, completely ground. Whether it's G+1, G+2, equally high densities as these particular colonies, vertical slums that we have. I've always wondered why they were not replicated and why we fall back on the same old, those security go and, all of those areas which were not in the US because of the humans. And they are political. The whole question is political. But isn't it also, I think, part of the responsibility is also with the schools or the academic community, which is not sufficiently demolishing them. We want such buildings because it is part of, the whole question is we can have Pakka low rise also. But the whole question is of shift image. Mm. I don't have an answer as to how really we can do, but somewhere I think the entire uh, learning system is also part of it. So what is featured is this image. And that's featured images of all those successful places like Haramaya and Indore, and there are places in Chennai. There are other locations in which genius, high density resettlement areas were there. So that's what I
Thank you to the speakers for your valuable insights and to the audience and to see. I would now like to ask Professor Satavi Chatterjee to present now with a token of our appreciation. So,
we're talking about. Send bank a token of appreciation.
It's a merge of one thing. Is it possible to send it by courier?
Why not?
thank you audience and everyone for attending all of these sessions today. I would now like to invite all of you to please join us for a short cultural event in the seminar hall 4, right opposite this one. No, I'm saying. If the gathering is not to the
Climate change.